All right, all right, all right, all right. Hello, everyone out there in Blog Talk Radio Land. This is your host. This is Big Meats, and you're dishing tea with Big Meats today. I want to thank you all for coming in, and for those of you listening by telephone and or by internet, I appreciate your support, and I thank you all once again for coming. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, I want you to please pick up your phone. You can dial me at 347-205-9183. Once again, 347-205-9183. That's the call-in number. Once you call in, if you're listening by telephone and you have a question or a comment, please just press the number 1, and I will know that you want to talk on my call queue, okay? I want to take this time to thank all of my sponsors for believing in dishing tea with me. My sponsors, Trade Day Management and Publicity, is a full-service project management and publicity firm specializing in media pitching and placement, exposure campaigns, event support, launches, public relations, writings, relationship building. Enjoy a touch of Southern hospitality with a universal appeal. At Trade Day, we build a solid relationship with businesses or projects based on the dedication and commitment. We deliver effective solutions for a wide range of creative, printing, and fulfillment needs. Trade Day Management and Publishing. You can catch them at www.myspace.com/TradeDayPR. That's spelled TreaDayPR. And also my other sponsor is Pharaoh's Treasure Box. Yes, thank you, Pharaoh's Treasure Box, for all of your wonderful support, for your fine art and jewelry. They have Creations by Taps, for all of your artwork and unique jewelry designs. Contact Pharaoh's Treasure Box. You can visit them at pharaohstreasurebox.com, or you can call 248-688-5178. Once again, thank you all for believing in what dishing tea is all about. I'm going to call all of you. I was given this from a listener of the show, and he says that he wants the handle for all of you who are listening in to be my tea sippers. So, okay, tea sippers, I want you to enjoy yourselves. Bring in all of your scones and your crumpets, if you will. And for those of you over in the chat room, I'm going to call you the tea room from now on. Is that okay? So the tea room, honey, dish your tea over there. My tea sippers have a good time with us, and we're going to move forward. Is that all right with you? It's all right with me. We're going to introduce to you a very, very, very dear, wonderful friend of mine, spiritual friend and colleague, and we've been on the blazes of doing some things together. She has been on the forefront in Detroit and across the country, actually, with bringing forth truth and knowledge and understanding with LGBT culture. I asked her to come on because we're going to talk about a situation today that is very, very relevant to the LGBT culture, and that is the role of the stud. Now, I bombarded her because I was trying to do a lot in this, but we're going to concentrate on the role of the stud today, and hopefully, depending on where the conversation goes, we'll mull into a couple other areas. But our concentration today is going to be the role of the stud in LGBT culture. And my friend has been on the forefront of that. I want to introduce you to Dr. Kofi Adoma. She is also known by her childhood name as Dr. Amory Robinson. Professionally, she serves as a licensed clinical psychologist practicing in and around the Detroit area, the city where she was born and raised. She received her BA in psychology at Oberlin College and her MA in educational psychology at the University of Michigan. In 1996, she graduated from the University of Michigan with her PhD in clinical psychology. Her dissertation is entitled Black Identity and Coping Among African Americans in a Predominantly White University Setting. At Wayne State County Juvenile Courts Clinic for Child Study in Detroit, Michigan, Dr. Kofi enjoys doing individual, family, and group therapy with adolescents. She also conducts therapy at an outpatient psychiatric clinic called Lewis and Michaela, where she works with children, adolescents, and adults, including same-gender couples and families. In addition, Dr. Kofi is a guest lecturer at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, where she teaches women's studies and psychology courses, including Introduction to LGBT Studies, Intersection of Race and Attractional Orientation, and Gender and Group Process in a Multicultural Context. During the course of her scholarly and therapeutic work, Dr. Kofi coined the term attractionality to replace sexuality when relevant. Outside of conducting psychological evaluations and assessments, trainings, lectures, intergroup dialogues, and therapy, she has made herself available to mental health service providers for consultation services. Dr. Kofi has been a part of the Association for Women in Psychology and is a member of the American Psychological Association and is serving as the president of the Association of Black Psychologists Detroit Metro Chapter. In 2002, Dr. Kofi, under her childhood name Amory Robinson, contributed a chapter in a book called Battered, Black and Blue, Violence in the Lives of Black Women, on domestic violence among African-American lesbians. Dr. Kofi has conducted safe space workshops around the country for black lesbians who are masculine identified and who was invited to co-edit an anthology on black lesbian butches. She plans to write a book on psychology of black masculine identified lesbians that highlights the psychological and emotional struggles as well as the resiliences in coping with this population, counteracting the distorted public images in the media. Having said all of that, I gladly welcome to Dishing Tea. This is Dr. Kofi Adoma. Hello, my darling. Dish your tea with me, sister.
I'm glad to be here. And you know, I caught that Freudian slip of yours, thug, rather than
okay, right.
I've done that.
Right.
Okay.
Right,
glad
right.
To be here. Yeah.
I'm so glad to have you here. One of the things that I would like for us to do with this particular conversation is to get the audience to understand what this means in the world, the LGBT culture of the whole idea of what a stud is. Let's start there. What is a definition or the definition of a stud?
Well, first I want to start off by saying hello to the audience and just to remind you that I'm not an expert on this area. This is just a topic of interest for me and also for me personally, identifying as a masculine identified lesbian. But you know what? I'm glad you're doing this topic because like anyone who understands the LGBT umbrella, masculine identified lesbians are virtually marginalized, misunderstood, and misfit, not considered the norm, lacking in exposure to positive role models of ourselves. There's a new movement, and you should know, and your audience should know, there's a new movement, a national movement of black MILs, masculine identified lesbians, that are reinventing ourselves and the language we use to define ourselves. Like we use the word brista instead of sister or brother, we use brista. And, of course,
I love that.
MIL. You like that? So
I
like
love
all
that.
LGBTs, we've experienced prejudice from within our own community as well as outside of our community. And once MILs recognize that each of us are not alone, then we can empower us and reframe the conversation. So really we celebrate our identity, we honor it, and, that's how God made us. God loves us not in spite of who we are, but because of who we are. And I'm quoting Reverend Alicia Heath-Tovey out in New Jersey, who's with me on this. But if you were to look in a dictionary, you ask, what is a stud? If you looked in a dictionary, you'd probably see something like a male horse or stallion, something like that. And it's kind of been a word that has kind of eroticized or sexualized masculine identified lesbians. And certainly if you're talking the lingo within LGBT culture, stud refers to simply a masculine lesbian. And the term has been popularized in mostly black LGBT communities, mostly in the Midwest cities, but the more common term to refer to a masculine lesbian is the word butch. And not all masculine identified lesbians use the term stud or even butch to describe themselves. Usually it's a word that people use to describe that masculine woman. And some MILs reevaluated the terms to use to identify ourselves. I mean, even the word lesbian is questioned and reevaluated, by many same-gender attracted women of color, but that's another show, of course. So.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so it's having a diaspora or becoming a diaspora of its own.
Yes, it is. It's growing. And I think I told you earlier there's a conference going on this weekend in Oakland, California that I wish I could go to. I don't have the money. It's called Butch Voices. And it's the very first national conference, from what I hear of butch lesbians. I think it's butchvoices.com. It's not too late to register for anybody out there in your audience who want to go.
Butchvoices.com. Okay, remember that, folks. I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to keep pulling that in there. Butchvoices.com. Wow. Now, we have MILs. I want to make sure that I inoculate that term into my vocabulary. MILs.
And I have a friend that calls us Millies.
Millies. Stop! That's too much. That is too much. That's the irony of that is just too much. I love it. I love it.
I love our community. Don't you, Demetrius?
I love it.
God bless us.
Millies, Lord, that's funny. For those of us who may not connect with the whole lesbian community or the MILs of the lesbian community, why or is there a difference between those who identify as MIL and those who identify as trans men?
Well, first of all, you have to ask the person who's doing the identifying. I mean, it's a personal choice what they're to be called. And if you ask me, I was identified, like I said, by others when I first came out. They identified me as, when I first came out, as same-gender attracted. And I never questioned it. I just accepted it as part of the culture and the lingo. And I fit the definition that people were talking about. And I knew that they weren't calling me that in a derogatory way. I accepted the term at the time, and it was convenient, it was quick, and descriptive, basically. I mean, whenever the term studies used, I know that the person is talking about gender expression. It served a purpose, and I have since reformulated my terminology just as I did with the term sexuality. I don't use that term to describe people. I may use the term attractionality to describe one's identity as same gender, opposite gender, or both gender attracted. And that, again, is another show. So whenever we talk about studs, butches, stone butches, and masculine-identified lesbians, femme-identified lesbians, androgynous and such, referring to the category of gender expression, it's one level of identity. And I discovered that I had masculine energy when I was a kid. I tried to fight it as a teenager, of course, tried to fight that off, but claimed it when I came out. And coming out in an LGBT community is affirming because a masculine woman is accepted in that community and sometimes even idolized to some extent. Gender expression is independent of one's attractional orientation. And what I mean by that, Demetrius, is that there are heteroattractional women who are masculine. There are heteroattractional men who are feminine, right? So gender expression is part of one's personality. It's a trait. And some say it's attached to gender roles, but not necessarily. I mean, one doesn't have to play roles to be who they are naturally. It's sort of like a claiming of one's identity. It's one's place on a spectrum ranging from, hyper-masculine on one side, hyper-feminine on the other side, and everybody just kind of falls somewhere on that spectrum. And some are fluid with their gender expression, and they move from one space to another, and others are very static about it. Now, transgender is different from gender expression. Transgender is gender identity.
Identity,
and I'm sure you've already informed your listeners in the past about this concept. And I've had to speak in my class about it, remember?
Yes, right.
And so as someone who, like me, who's masculine identified, the key word in masculine identified lesbian is lesbian. I'm a woman and embrace my identity as a woman who is attracted to women. And I'm satisfied with the biological sex I was born into. And though I experienced some struggles with accepting my womanhood while growing up as a kid, wanting to do what boys got to do, and, I didn't feel that I was a boy inside, okay? I was just a tomboy, a boyish girl who grew up to be a masculine woman, and therefore I don't identify as a trans man. And I'm telling my story because there are those MILs whose experiences are similar to mine. I've done enough of the workshops. I've done safe spaces for black masculine-identified lesbians and Christian masculine-identified lesbians through Unity Fellowship Church and on and on. And we are very clear that we want to be women. We just have a masculine spirit. The trans men are very much our brothers, and we accept them as our brothers. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Well, okay, for the listening audience, I threw that question out there. I'm a transgender educator, so it answers it answers mine.
Professor.
But for the heteroattractional out there, or for the questioning person of same gender attraction who's out there who may not have the insight into LGBT culture, particularly lesbian culture, because within our whole realm, we don't interact with one another as we should. There's always been this separatism. Lesbians hang with lesbians, gay men hang with gay men, transgender, they get lost in the shuffle because, no one wants to take the time to understand their particular plight and their struggle. Bi-attractional people, they're being shunned by both sides because of the thought process of believing that, this is just a phase, or they got to make up their mind, they just sitting on the fence, and all of that particular thing. So when dealing with that particular question, a lot of folks don't know how to handle it because all they know are the stereotypes.
Right.
Now you spoke about the spectrum, with hypermasculine on one side and hyperfemininity being the other end of the spectrum. In terms of dealing with MILs and that hyper-masculine persona, which seems to be the stereotype that a lot of us want to embrace, why do you believe that has become such a staple with mainstream society accepting that as what lesbianism is about?
Well, before I'll lead up to that by just saying that, I do want to emphasize diversity so that we don't generalize too much, about what we do. And here's where I'll put in a plug for Healing Detroit. Healing Detroit is a group of black gays and lesbians who are trying to close the gaps between us. The separateness you were talking about earlier. We're bringing the men and the women together, the elders and the young people together, the straight and the gay together, here in Detroit. And we're working to close those divisions, close up those gaps. So I do want to emphasize that. But I think a lot of that has to do, Demetrius, with our history, because there was a time in which gender roles were played among women in the lesbian community, and I would refer your audience to a book called Female Masculinity, and it's by Judith Halberstram. Female Masculinity by Judith Halberstram, and she describes a lot of this history and where we got the gender roles, the butch and the femme and the stone butch and all of that, that it really played a role in our history. And if you recall our history, the Stonewall Rebellion, those who were rebelling against the police happened to be many who were transgender, and those who were not fitting the heteronormativity, like masculine lesbians and feminine men. So really, these were the pioneers of our movement, of our gay movement. I will say, though, in response to your question about the hyper-masculine persona, that for the most part, from my experiences, what I've encountered, there's no acting going on. A woman is just naturally masculine. It's just that, and that's who she is. She can't control it. She didn't chose it. It chose her, and God made her the way she is. It's up to the rest of society to include her in the family of human variation. So asking this question is like asking why a woman is a woman, why is a man a man, why is the sky
right.
blue. You see what I'm saying?
Okay,
and
right,
there's the
right.
spectrum. Again, there's the spectrum.
Again.
One, hyper-masculinity on one side and maybe less masculine on the other side, and then there's all this variation. I mean, that's what I like about our community is we've embraced the human diversity and the variation that we have amongst us. And I know that sometimes the hyper-masculine women, they tend to get a lot of negative attention within the LGBT community as well as outside the LGBT community, and that's where all the misunderstanding begins. Oh, you trying to be a man. Oh, you trying to be this, and you think you're that, and you're, and then some of us even internalize that, Demetrius, and that's where the domestic violence sometimes goes on that we're seeing in our some of our MIL youth. Hitting on their women, hitting their women and thinking, that makes me the butch, And so the older, MILs in the community need to wake up and say, hey, we got to step up and be role models for these young people. And I know this is what the Unity Fellowship Church Movement, MIL ministry is all about, is reaching out to other MILs and letting them know that God loves them for who they are, and also to reach out to the youth who have no role models on TV that says, I'm good the way I am. I don't have to change
the way I am,
put on
exactly.
A dress. I don't have to put on lipstick. But, yeah, when I go to a job interview, I got to pull my pants up. Yes, I got to take the hat off. You see what I'm saying? To help them navigate, help them navigate the world as an MIL. You see what I'm saying?
You know what? Let me ask this, because this may be a little off the cuff. However, for those who identify as MILs, I know our societies, as you said before, you're just trying to be a man, etc. Is it safe to say that a lot of those masculine traits or the lack of a role model and the masculine traits that seem to come emulated is from a lack of all of the different role models, and they're just imitating what's seen around them in their culture with the men that they see and all of that? Am I making sense with the question?
I think so. I think I know where you're going with that. I can tell you that since male masculinity is most visible to everybody, and including our young people, that's the type of masculinity that often gets, emulated or copied. But I got to tell your audience, though, that masculinity is not just reserved for males, and that's, I think, where our culture has a problem. And
Would
so
you say that one more time?
Yeah. Masculinity is not just for men and boys. And that's what I have come to discover. Because when I talk to the Bristas, they talk about knowing that they were MILs, or at least the masculine part, since they were like 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
And so it's a type of masculinity. It's not the same as male masculinity. And our young people are not seeing the female masculinity. That's the book that I just talked about. The female masculinity. That men can be feminine and women can be masculine. And again, there's that spectrum again that we all follow along, you see.
Exactly.
So
wow, so I'm getting excited over here. Because and the reason why is because I'm glad that you said that, because as a gay man, all that I know about strength and believe it or not, positive masculinity was shaped by my mother, because she was such a masculine, had a lot of masculine energy. As feminine as my mother was and is, she still had that, she was a tomboy and had that masculine persona about her. My mother was the one to taught me how to change the oil in my car and to look at the oil dipstick and things. My mother was the one to show my brother how to throw a football correctly, and sat down and watched the games with him and all of that, and still showed me how to cook and how to sew and this, that, and that. But everything about that strength and that inner strength that a lot of gay men love women about is just that female masculine energy. And I love that you say that. I'm sitting over here like, oh my God, I made that kind of connection like that. And to say that masculinity is not just for men, I love that, honey. I'm sitting over here flipping.
Oh, my goodness. And
Okay.
everyone has masculinity and femininity in them, okay? But it's just up to the person to embrace whatever, because I know I have femininity in men. How many butchers do you know play a violin, okay? So I embrace the femininity that I have, but the masculine energy seems to predominate for me, but that's a part of my personality. That's who I am.
Wow. I'm loving this. So, now, having the male masculinity as, on the forefront and as the mainstream definition of what masculinity is to be. We were talking about the young MILs who may be emulating that and end up hitting their women and things, because we see that as part of the norm. What are the older generation of MILs? What are their or what is the teaching mechanisms, or what is the mentorship that's given to them to where they come out of those shadows?
Well, so far I've only been working with that with some people in the local community here in Detroit, and also through my church, National Movement Unity Fellowship Church. And right now, as we are developing this ministry, we have been charged to pretty much form appropriate, healthy relationships with young people. And through that relationship, and when the young person begins to trust us, and we become a legitimate, credible resource for them, then the mentorship can really, really take off, and the young person can really take advice or recommendations from the older person. We're trying to connect the generations together, because each generation of MILs have had different experiences and different adversities in which they've had to overcome. And so passing that wisdom down through the generations. In fact, at one workshop we did at ZUNA, which was the National Black Lesbian Conference, we did some intergenerational work, and it was beautiful to watch the Bristas really respond to each other. But we figured out that we really need each other. We need relationships. We need certainly appropriate interfaces with each other. And so to reach the young people, we got to meet them where they are, give some validation to certain behaviors, and invalidate other certain behaviors, of course, but also to let them know that they are worthy. That's the most important thing, that they are worthy, that they have something to give to the world. Once you've gained that sense of trust with that young person, then you'll be able to make recommendations like going on a job interview and how to treat their partner rather than hitting them and using verbal abuse. That's not a definition of being a butch. You can be a butch, and you can like flowers. It's not going to take away from your masculinity, all right? So these are the lessons and the messages that we can try to convey. But, the adults have to step up. We got to step up a little bit more. And, Detroit is the home of the Ruth Ellis Center. Which,
I was going there.
Yeah, it's one of 3 social service agencies that have outreach and transitional living for LGBT youth, for homeless, displaced LGBT youth, and it's the only one of the 3 that predominantly serves African American LGBT youth. And there we see a lot of young MILs, and I go by there when I can. I drop by and see them and watch how they interact. And so through that and spending time, precious quality time with them, is how we can reach out to the young people in an appropriate way. So that's in the nutshell.
Okay. With this young culture, and I'm gonna stick with this for just a little bit, just a second, because I was just having this conversation with my son, and we were talking about that whole thing of the young. The up and coming, okay, for those of those who have houses, up and coming legendary. For those who have houses that want to identify on the ball scene. But the whole idea that this culture has with the hip hop culture and the language that they have now, do you find that the intergenerational workshops and studies and ministries are able to be effective? Because many of us don't want to take the time to understand the language, and understand hip hop culture because we don't want to wrap our hands around it. And for those who are identifying as MILs, is that still the same struggle, or is that more individual or independent?
Well, like I said, we're just starting to develop this ministry, and everybody has kind of their individual experiences with this. Oh, dear. We're having a fire drill. I can't believe this.
Are you serious?
That means I have to go outside. I'm sorry. But we can continue talking, though.
Right.
Oh, God. I can't believe this. I am so sorry. Oh, this is so embarrassing.
I love it. Oh,
we can still talk,
that's all right.
though.
We can still
I'll
talk.
do the best I can. I will do the best I can. Oh,
that just means we got some hot tea, baby. We just got hot tea. Oh, that's so. Okay, for those of you who are still listening in, right now, Dr. Kofi is joining us from her place of employment, and the building itself, honey, they just sprung an impromptu fire drill of sorts.
Okay.
And so, as she's continuing to get it together and get to a quieter space, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Because it's not just me. Oh my God! When I had April Summers, who was the transgender outreach counselor over there at the Ruth Ellis Center, she was on a few weeks ago, and we had a power outage, so I got to bring her back because the interview got cut. Because it was amazing. It was amazing. I was furious, but it was amazing.
Oh my God!
But,
okay,
yeah.
I'm in a little better situation right now.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Good grief! It would have to happen on your show.
Oh, darling, I wouldn't be me. It wouldn't be me, honey, without it. It would not be me without it. I love it. I love it. And believe it or not, it's almost at the same time that I had the faux pas with April, too. Almost same time in.
Oh, God. Okay, you were saying hip-hop, right?
So, right.
Yeah.
But for the masculine identified lesbians, and in dealing with the younger ones, the ones who are up and coming, and with the language difference. Yeah, language barriers and cultural barriers, because we're coming from the disco, flipping, carrying on, make love not war era, and now for those who were my who came before me, they were more so into another generation. I was the in your face generation, we're gonna let it all hang out kind of thing. And it wasn't about trying to pass or whatever. Now we're in a whole nother thing of the hip hop culture, and everything is blending in again and passing again, or whatever this is, and the language has changed. So particularly for those who identify as MILs, do we see that as maybe a problem with getting them to listen and to understand, or? Yeah,
I see what you're saying. It doesn't have to be a barrier, and it's kind of a each one to reach one kind of thing. We know intellectually that we have to meet young people where they are, and that goes with whether someone's MIL or not. But the obligation to MIL youth as kind of a way of expressing their understanding of marginality. MILs felt obligated to protect MIL youth and provide them with leadership and guidance. And many had ideas on how to do this. And one is, we got to reach them and use their language to kind of get them to listen. But gaining trust, I think, is the highest priority.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, here, let me go here. It's two areas that may be a little dark. Well, I won't necessarily say dark, but at least a little bit kind of taboo. And I know that this term here becomes it becomes offensive to those who identify as MILs. And that is the whole thought process of MILs, or those who are hyper-masculine, if you will, the thought of them having penis envy. How does the MIL community deal with that, and is there any way of bringing any kind of positivity or sensitivity training to dealing with this particular issue versus it being, a center for conflict?
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't know where this myth of penis envy comes from, and you're talking to a psychologist who learned about penis envy through Sigmund Freud, okay? Psych 101. So this is the first time I've heard about this, but it's a false assumptions are not very safe, and I've never, like I said, never heard this myth before. And as an MIL, I can tell you, what I said earlier, as a kid, when I didn't know better and didn't use abstract reasoning, I wanted to be a boy. And not because I felt like I was a male inside of me, but because I observed how boys had it better than me, a girl. I mean, they got to wear a sailor suit, like my brother did. They got to get the cars. They got to stay out later than I could. As a teenager, they had privileges, which in my adult years, I learned that it's called male privilege, and there was no equality when I was growing up. Rather than envy is really a desire to see equality between the genders. And naturally, if you see someone else has got it good and you don't, you want to have what they have. And at one time, African Americans didn't have certain privileges like the right to vote. We wanted it, but it didn't mean we wanted to actually have white skin. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So, just about everything that's been said about by the public about butch women has been derogatory. I mean, there's hardly anything that's been complimentary. And like I said, positive images are invisible in the media. Young MILs aren't exposed to role models unless they're a concerted effort or a concerted outreach, like the one for the Unity Fellowship Movement. That's the only one that I know of. So I hope we're walking back to the building now. But I hope that answers part of your question, some of your questions.
Yeah, I think it does, because, being a gay man, and like I said, my experiences have been, I haven't had many hard experiences. I've just been taken back a few times because I didn't know how to address a butch woman or an MIL, because it seemed like they were so resistant and so protective.
Demetrius, there's this myth that there's anger toward men, and I don't believe that at all. I think it's just one of those myths that gets spread around, and one of those false beliefs that all black people love watermelon, I mean, we all know what it's like when our own identity group gets lumped into one. If one person does something bad, it's a reflection on the entire group. And I think your listeners are intelligent enough to know better than to fall for these false beliefs, And I'll go out and say, most of my MIL friends tell me that some of their best friends are men, whether they be hetero-attractional or homo-attractional or bi-attractional.
Right. Now here's another area, and that is the physical body and the MIL. And I'm saying this for those who identify as MILs, but yet are very busty and very, curvaceous, and having to contend with their body image versus what, their internal, they're feeling internally. Is that a hard struggle within the lesbian community? Because I know, in my experience, a lot of MILs that I've experienced over the years are usually top-heavy women who are very hippie, and when you see them, it's like, okay, and you want to be what? It becomes confusing to the gay man, because I'm like, girl, I'm trying to get your body. For those who are feminine acting or feminine identifying men, and does that create a kind of resistance, or is that part of the whole process?
from what I know, Demetrius, it's a mixed bag. I mean, there are women across attraction orientation who embrace their bodies the way they are, no matter what size they are, no matter what shape. For MILs, and I just did a survey, I did some anonymous surveys of MILs, and I did ask things about the body, you know, and like I said, it was pretty much 50-50. Some women were not happy with parts of their body the way they are, and some were, no matter what size they describe themselves. And like I said before, these are women who don't want to be men, okay? You know,
okay,
that's
the key right there, right?
Right. Again, these are masculine identified lesbians. So lesbians are women, and if they, you know, if they want their bodies to change, then perhaps they might be exploring the notion of going through, you know, transformation, you know, gender reassignment surgery. But the MILs that I have encountered, it's a mixed bag about the body, and that's I think it's more of a gender. I think it's a women's issue more so than anything else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
for women, you know, the look of our bodies and how we look, and how we're conscientious and preoccupied with our bodies. I think it's more society's drilling into our heads as women that we have to be a certain way and look a certain way. So,
okay.
Because remember, MILs are women, and we forget that a lot of times, too.
Okay, you're right. Now that, because I never thought about it like that. Wow. I never thought about it on that particular level. I've never taken that across the board as far as body image. And still dealing with the fact that they're MILs and not trans men, and yet still having to go through all of the notions like every other woman go through as far as body image and all of that. Oh, wow!
Yeah, what will help is to break that myth that masculine identified women or butchers or studs want to be men. And once we erase that myth from our belief system, then we can say, oh, well, these MILs, well, they're women too, and so they have the same kind of emotions. They go through the same kind of things that women's bodies go through, you know. And so there's more of a respect.
Wow. Okay, you know, see, you learn something every day. And if you don't, why, you know, why live if you're not learning every day? I love that.
Bless you.
Wow. Okay. Now, I'm going to go here. Okay. Because I know with Healing Detroit, you were saying that, you know, this is the coming together of the male and the female, the young and the old, and the butch and the femme. Okay? I know in some, I've not a lot of experience, but some experiences. And I remember, I forgot the Bristol's name, but I had attended one of your co-gender rap sessions, and we were talking, and I brought the subject up, why does it seem that MILs seem to have more of a respect for trans women and less and shows less respect for the flamboyant man. And the answer that I got at that point was because a trans woman exudes all of the femininity that I was attracted to begin with. You know, they're girly girls, and I'm attracted to girls. You know, and for a feminine, flamboyant man, the disheartening or the disenfranchised and I'm messing up the word. The conflict that they have with each other is the fact that the flamboyant feminine man wants to continue to tell the MIL how much of a man she ain't. Okay.
Oh my.
In your practice and in your experience, has that become a staple in African American interaction between femme and butch?
Yeah, I can't really say that because I have not heard that enough to really come to any conclusions about that. I think it's just such an individual preference that's there.
Mm-hmm.
I know too many MILs that have friends that are, feminine gay men. I say feminine gay men because not all gay men are feminine, right? So I'm talking about feminine ones. And then when we say trans woman, are we talking preoperative, postoperative? So it's really, we're talking about a lot of complexities here.
Right.
To really say anything definitive that's not generalizing about everybody and all MILs.
Exactly. Okay.
So I can't
That's
really
why I love you.
answer that question. But it's really interesting what you said, though.
That's why I love you.
Oh, God. Go to the rap session.
Because what happens is, what I love about it is that you bring a sense to the table that helps us to become open-minded thinkers on all of this, because everything is not so black and white. There's a whole spectrum of color along that. As you said earlier, it's the diversity that keeps us together, and that needs to be celebrated in its totality, and not just condemned to just the walls of black and white and so rigid to where we refuse to bend or give and say that this too exists. And I love you for that. I love you for that.
Bless you.
Okay. I see.
Can
we
I
have
say
a
something?
caller. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that, there's the stereotypes are so bad in the mainstream community that I don't know if people have heard about this incident in New York called the Lesbian 7, when there were some MILs. Yeah, they were walking down the street, and this man happened to be African-American man. These were African-American MILs. Approached them and harassed them, sexually harassed them, and one of them had to get to the point where she defended herself. And all 7 of the women were arrested, and one of them was taken to prison, I believe, for some years. But if they Google the Lesbian 7, they'll find out more about the story. And I'm sure your audience knows about Sakia Gunn, Ashe. She was 15 years old, and she was walking with her girlfriend in New Jersey, and 2 African-American men tried to hit on them, and one of them, Sakia said, well, I'm sorry, but, we're lesbians. And, she was minding her own business, and he took offense to her saying that he was not available, that she was not available for him and his pleasures, and went and stabbed her to death. 15-year-old African-American young MIL youth. And so we don't hear enough outrage about these kinds of cases and these kinds of hate crimes. We don't hear about our trans men and women hate crimes. We don't hear about the MILs, And so as a community, we really need to step up and voice our opinion about these kinds of incidents. So I did want to mention that.
The Sakia Gunn tragedy, there's a documentary film. My friend directed that, Charles Brack. Oh, and I don't remember the email address. I think it's SakiaGunnProject.com. You guys email me at dishingteawithbigmeat@gmail.com, and I'll get that information. But there is a documentary film that discusses Sakia's incident and her tragedy. And for those of you who are interested in that, you can, in fact, you can Google it, and it will come up, and you guys can find out more about the film project. The director's name is Charles Brack. He was a former deacon, actually, out of the New Jersey Unity Fellowship Church out there. And, so I wanted to push that out there for him as well. The film actually done wonderfully in different festivals and things. So we need to have those particular stories, because that's just, and I'm saying this like this because we've heard of the Brandon Tina story. And it's critically acclaimed when it came into a whole movie or whatever. But our stories as African Americans are not out there for folks to hear about and to understand and to know about and to learn from. And Sakia Gunn's story is just as significant as Brandon Tina's. So I'm encouraging all of you to go out and find out more about that.
And Demetrius, we also have talent in the arts, and I'm sure your audience has heard of the play Walk Like a Man.
Yes.
And in the play, they do address masculine identified lesbians and their lives and their their experiences. and there's a particular one in which a young woman is. Well, I won't say too much about it so people can go and enjoy it.
Okay.
But one of the scenes, a lot of people are using as a way of saying, oh, well, that's why masculine identified lesbians are the way they are. And I just want to let your audience know that there's no one way that one becomes a masculine identified lesbian. Everybody, each individual has their own way of coming into their masculinity, and it's not always something traumatic that has happened to them, okay? That it's something natural about the person and who they are and what their spirit is. So I'm sure.
I like that.
Yeah, and I encourage people to see the play. It's a wonderful play. It's based on some books too. Lorinda Brown, I think her name is the author. But you can Google it. Walk Like a Man.
Yeah, we Google it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's come to Detroit many times. So.
Oh, I'm familiar with the show. I forget the name of the artist, but I am familiar with that show. I have a caller. We're going to go out here, actually coming from you. 313-651. One of the tea sippers. Come on, darling. You're dishing tea now with Big Meech. Hi, caller. Tea sipper.
How are you today?
Doing well. How are you?
Kofi. How are you?
Hey.
Hi.
Who's this?
I was just wondering if you had any statistics, and going back to the domestic violence, if you had any statistics as far as the heterosexual community versus the gay and lesbian community.
Well, I've done. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I've done presentations on domestic violence in gay and lesbian communities, and there are a whole bunch of statistics to quote that I don't have at hand, but I can tell you that the numbers are pretty similar between the communities. They're very, very, very similar. Okay, they're close in number. Okay, that much I can tell you. It happens in men's relationships as well as women's relationships, and certainly it happens across race. But for the same-gender attracted community, there are more barriers to getting the proper services and the culturally competent services that they need.
Yes, that was leading up to my next question. Are there any resources there for those who are listening, that may need some type of assistance?
Yes, I wish I had brought the information with me, but there's an abundance of information and safe places for same-gender attracted persons to go to get the services they need and that are culturally competent to work with those populations. And I know that oftentimes it's really hard to come out because that's another coming out. You come out as gay, if you're not out, and then you come out as someone who has been a survivor or victim of domestic violence. So there's two coming outs that happen, and so a lot of us are really reluctant to either go to authorities who are so insensitive to what our experiences are. So I'm really glad you asked the question. It's really important that we raise awareness about the issue of domestic violence and take that out of the closet in our own LGBTA community, A meaning ally.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, T. Sipper. I'm glad that you were able to get your question and your comment in. Thank you so much for calling. All right. Now, those kinds of things, oh, my. It takes me to a place, honey, to where I get angered when the resources and stuff are not taken seriously or seem to be not available because of insensitivity. That angers me. So we have another caller. Oh, wow. Coming back from you, Dr. Kofi, 313-342. I'm coming to you, my tea sipper. Hello there, my darling. You're dishing tea with Big Meech. Hey, caller.
Peace. Hello?
Hey. Yes, you're on the air.
My name is Mary. Hello, Dr. Coffee.
Hey, Mary. Oh, I bow to you.
And I'm so glad that someone emailed me about Blog Talk Radio, and I am so honored that you are out there to help the black, lesbian, gay community, and I learned a new term today, which is MIL. I didn't know that term.
How about that?
So thank you for being out there for more or less them than me. Now, I'm older, as you know. And thank you, and peace.
Oh, gosh. Mary, Thank you. Demetrius, Mary is someone who has helped us pave the way, so I have to give honor to her as well. We used to be in an organization that kind of, planted the seeds of starting Black LGBT organizations in the city of Detroit. So I give my props to her as well. Thank you, Mary, for the call.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much. Yes, honey, we have to pay homage to all of those who helped pave the way, who have come before us, because without them, there is no us. And for us to be able to do the things that we do, as radical as we are, and to be able to have such a radical voice and a changing voice, without our predecessors, we could not be who we are. So, yes, I salute all of those who have gone and who have passed on and are now ancestors now, and those who are still here as living legends, who are jewels of the community. I cherish you. I cherish you, honey. I cherish you. I salute all of that. Whew, this has just been a very, very informative show, and I'm glad she said that this term of MIL, because I like I said, I want to take and embrace that term. You helped you've helped me. I won't say the entire world, because although I'm vain that way, with taking sex out of homosexuality and bisexuality and replacing that with attraction. And the whole attractionality movement, I love that, because if you take, it's not anything, I'm stuttering. It has never been about the sex as the definition. You can't help who you are attracted to. I'm attracted to the same gender, and there's nothing sexual about that. Yeah,
many of us knew when we were kids, when we had crushes, which gender we were attracted to. Did we have to have sex in order to,
Right.
say that's who we are?
I love that. I love that. I love that. Now, what is going on in the last 2 minutes, Dr. Kofi? Tell the listening public about some of the upcoming things that you have going on. Now, we talked about the Butch Voices. We've talked about Healing Detroit. Is there anything else that you have going on, maybe with Ruth Ellis, maybe with Karibu House, or anything that's going on that helps to facilitate these kinds of dialogues and to help get our MILs into mainstream and to build their equity?
Yes, there's going to be a intergroup multicultural dialogue between gay and straight in the Black community that we're calling "Wanna Be Starting Something" after Michael Jackson's song, and it's most likely going to be either at University of Detroit, Mercy, or at Wayne State University, but the date will be on October 24th and 25th. It's a 2-day retreat. It's not an overnight, but it's an all-day thing on Saturday and all day on that Sunday, October 24th and 25th here in Detroit. Want to be starting something at gmail.com. It's a contact way to get in touch with us and to reserve a place, free of charge, free breakfast, free lunch, and we're bringing the entire Black community in Detroit metro area together to talk across attractional orientation lines. We have not had that kind of interface dialogue, and we so need it.
Yes,
we
Lord.
so need it for 18 and older. So please sign up if you're in the Detroit area and support this effort to bring our community together, to build the bridges that we need, and to get rid of the barriers that we cannot afford to have as a Black community. Let's really move on from this thing. And I think you already know that Charles Pugh is on his way to becoming either city council president in Detroit or at least on the city council. So when
I'm working on getting him on the show, honey.
Hey, when President Obama said it's time to change, well, guess what? It's time to change. So
I'm working on getting Charles on the show. So to all of you, honey, I'm down to the last few seconds. I'm going to say thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kofi, for joining us here at Dishing Tea. For those of you who have any other comments or whatever, please make sure that you 347-205-9183 is the call-in number. If you got questions, comments, or concerns, email me at dishingtea, dishingteawithbigmeach, dishingtea with big meach at gmail.com. Dr. Kofi, once again, thank you, my darling, for coming
You're
on
welcome.
with us and to sharing this and to letting us know. For those, we do archives, so you can catch us all in the archives. Go back and share this information with your friends. Share it with someone who, you may have problems with dialoguing to get the discussion started. We had some wonderful information that came out today. I'm your host. I go by Big Meats here. You've been dishing tea with us. Thank you so much for being on the show. Dr. Kofi, I know that you're busy. I got to get back into your day now that they've cleared the fires and, got everybody together.
The bell's still ringing. Shout out to Mom. Shout out to Jane Robinson, my mom.
Oh, okay. Right, okay. We got to shout out to Jane Robinson, honey. All right, my darling.
My mom.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Demetrius.
All right. And to the listening audience, we'll catch you next week. Next week, we got Zim Van Adams, one of the new voices of the LGBT culture. I call him one of the up-and-coming leaders, legendary. He'll be here on the show talking about his new documentary, Young, Black, and Gay in America. You can catch that on YouTube, youtube.com, or go to his page, Zim Van Adams, XEMVANADAMS.com. Until then, my darlings, I will catch you guys later. All my tea sippers, I love you. I will see you guys next week. Thank you.
Right.